All right, Coach Danny Cavalea. Thanks for coming on, man. This is awesome. Just pumped to connect with you, and I appreciate you taking some time.
Cool. Joe, thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
yeah. So we were just chatting. I was about to start telling you, like I started this because I played ball at Seton Hall, and then started working, and then I just thought that there was a space for like former athletes, maybe, and it doesn't
Mm,
even have to be athletes, but just people who are kind of transitioning to that next point of life, like figuring out what they're going to do, right? So I know that that's something that you've experienced a few times, and would love to
yeah.
just like ask you about your perspective on some of it. So,
Well, you gave me a layup there, but I can take it and say, look, you know what? Everybody's transitioning today. So get on board with the party and, transition to what is best for you. You know, my mentality with everything is you're always leaving something for something. So if you think about that, right, we're always leaving something for something. It could be, hey, I used to think like that, and I'm leaving that in favor of a more upgraded way of thinking. Or, I used to love my job, but I don't anymore. So I'm leaving that for something better that fits me better now. I used to play baseball, but now I don't. So I'm leaving that for something. So we're always leaving something for something, and we're always moving from one thing to something else. It's just a matter of, do we decide to put friction around that mentally, or do we decide to embrace that
hmm
transition? And that's an individual choice.
yeah, well, that's what you're probably helping a lot of people with these days, just coaching wise, right? I mean, that's what like a lot of specifically men, right? They're coming to you,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
like, man, I don't know what's going on with me. Like I'm in a not in a
yeah.
good spot.
No, men are in trouble right now because men, they don't, well, first, we're losing the definition of what it even is, right? You got people that don't know if they're a dog, a cat, a man, a woman, right? So you got all that going on. And then, men don't know how to act, right? They don't know, hey, do I embrace my masculinity, or do I, sort of castrate it? And that's another issue. But you really, at the end of the day, man, woman, whatever you are, you just got to embrace, who you are, and give your thoughts and your beliefs some honor, right? You got to honor those thoughts, you got to honor those beliefs, and you got to move towards that thing that you feel called to move towards.
That's what you write about in the book a little bit too, right? Like going with your gut. It's
Go
like there's
go.
something that your gut is telling you. What did I feel like you hear that all the time? What does that mean to you? Like,
Well, I'll tell you what it means. It means that we're all sort of hardwired with this great gift that says yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. And we oftentimes cloud that gift. We cloud it with overthinking, looking at other people, dialogue that says, well, how's it going to be perceived? Is this the right move? Should I be doing it? Right? All of that kills right there. You've already killed that gift. So I'm big on first feeling. What's the first feeling you have? Go for it. What's the first feeling you have? Go for it. And at the end of the day, even if that first feeling is wrong, you'll have the opportunity to get that first feeling again, and you can go and make another decision. So that's a really important thing to remember, is that there's also no wrong answers. Like, everybody's trying to make this perfect script to their life. And look, I think for a lot of people, if let's use athletes for an example, a lot of guys would like to just play forever and live that lifestyle, but they can't. A decision at some point is made, often for them, whether they can continue at that or not. And then they have to, again, decide, do I want to do this or not? And am I ready to leave or not? And sometimes they're not ready, but they get kicked in the butt and they got to go. And other times they get to make the decision. But we're always in this position where we have to say, hey, first feeling, like, can I still do this? Like, can I still suit up and go through 162? Like, I think about it from a coaching standpoint. Could I today, being removed for, just short of 10 years from Major League Baseball, that travel, the grind, the day to day, could I go back to that? And if I'm being 100% honest with myself, I'm like, nah, I can't go back to that. I did that. I was wired at the time for that. Now I'm wired for something else. So we have to embrace a lot of these things, which oftentimes we don't do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're saying like a lot of people just have to embrace like people don't know what they are. I wanted to ask you like you're pretty active on LinkedIn. Do you what's why do you do that? You know,
I'm very
you're
strategic.
just
Well,
you're speak your
yep.
mind
So
like you ruffle some feathers.
yeah,
Like
so I know very, very clearly who my target is, right? I got a lot of my clientele, they are type A killers. They got no time for BS. They have no time for soft stuff. They have no time for, again, trying to figure out some of these social issues in the world. They don't care. These guys are competitors, they're money makers, they're CEOs, they're executives, they're managing partners within private equity. Um, these are guys playing the money game. Uh, they're not interested in any of the fluffy, feel good type stuff. They want to go out there and compete every day, and they want to compete at the highest possible level. They want to take their potential and maximize it. They want to close the gap on their potential. They're obsessed with it. So I write to that person. And you know what? When I get some liberal housewife from the Midwest that doesn't agree, I don't care because she's not my target. I'm not writing for her. I'm not writing for her applause. I'm actually not even writing for the applause of my target. I'm writing in a way, in a style that best represents um, what I believe through experience and what I see in front of me. That's it. And that's how I go about it. Does it ruffle feathers? Yep. And does it play very interestingly in the marketplace where I don't get a lot of comments? Yes, but I get a lot of private comments. Like I get a lot of private messages of guys that are like afraid to put their nuts out there on the line and say, "Hey, I really like that." You know, when you call out a whole group of people for having vaginitis in a public market, that'll ruffle some feathers. And some guys
piss
don't
people
want to
off.
put their, they
Yeah.
don't want to put their writing, their comments down below. That's okay. But it's all very strategic branding, brand building, and attraction based persuasive writing.
Sure. Yeah, and guys will because that's the thing. I think about that too. Like you're kind of afraid to say what you really want to say at times, right? I mean, it's especially
It's
if you're working for a big company or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, you kind of have to reel it in a little bit.
it's
So
interesting because again, I work with a lot of CEOs of big companies, and these guys, the way I'm writing, they're feeling. They're not into a lot of what's going on. They're not. They're not into the excessive, hug fest DEI stuff. They're not into that. They're being forced to do that, and they hate it. So, it's like I just think as a whole, we probably as a culture would do much better just cutting through the bullshit. I mean, you got people, you got husband and wives that can't be honest with each other. You have people in premarital relationships that can't be honest with each other. You have employers and employees that can't be honest with each other. Just go down the line, right? You got politicians who are all full of shit, right? So there's no truth there. So you start looking around and you're like, what truth do we have in our life? Now we don't have a lot of truth in our life, unfortunately. So it starts with you, right? It starts with us as individuals making a commitment that says, look, what I say, what I do, it may offend some people. It may not jive with everybody, but that's okay. Joe and I, we don't have to agree on everything. Maybe
yeah,
we agree on 10% of things, but we still like each other as guys. We don't have to agree on everything. We're all entitled to have our own beliefs and those beliefs sort of sculpt our brand. They sculpt who we are. They make us who we are. If every musician copied the Rolling Stones, we wouldn't have much diversity in the world of music. Same thing.
Absolutely, man. Yep. I agree with you. So that CEO that you're saying, what's the process of them coming to you? Like, and where do you start with them usually? What kind of questions do you ask them?
I start with their biggest problem, right? And you start with, hey, what's bothering you, and what are you looking to improve upon? I have guys call me and say, look, I know I could be a better leader. I have guys call me and say, look, all I do is work. I can't stop working. I'm addicted to work. My personal life at home is a mess. Other guys say I'm 30 pounds overweight. Don't know what to do. Can you help get me on a plan? It's all different situations. That's why I call it performance coaching. It's like everybody um, looks at performance differently. If you're somebody that you're physically active, you love the gym, you like to eat right, your physical health is not your number one concern because you got that. But what else? Maybe you don't sleep at night. Maybe you have chronic anxiety. Maybe you have an issue with focus. Maybe you want to do all these things and you don't know what the lead domino is that you should do to knock down the rest of them with the least amount of effort. So we go over a lot of those things. I just believe that everybody should have a personalized game plan to attack their goals and what it is they're after. And you should always have somebody in your corner to help you set that plan, number one. But number two, help you manage that plan. Because along the way, between you and that achievement that you desire, you're going to have self-doubt. You're going to have questions. You're going to have moments of distraction. You're going to get off course potentially. You're going to just get tired and fatigued. For the level that I work with and the folks that I work with, one of the biggest issues and I'd say things that hinder their performance is fatigue. They work, and they keep working, and they say, I need to be more productive. That whenever I hear someone say, I need to be more productive, it's often a fatigue problem, especially if they're not a lazy dog. They're just, for all of us, our output will go down with fatigue. It's like our body's way of saying, look, I'm not going to give you the ability to focus because you have to recover. So these are all different things, that situations and scenarios that we go over. And then I also work within the companies. When a company's like, hey, our sales team has no courage, our sales team has no guts, they're overthinking, they're this, they're that, and the other thing. So every situation is different. Every company is different. Every
Gotcha.
culture is different.
Yeah, sure. What do you do to stay on track? Who
Uh,
does anybody coach you?
yeah, no, actually, yeah, and it's funny because I deal with a lot of the same issues that I work with clients on. I think my frequency could be a bit less than some of my clients. Like I don't deal with it as much, but I certainly deal with it. My body every year downshifts me sometimes with a little bit of a cold, like I got now, that says, "Hey, big boy, slow it down a little bit." You don't need to go to the gym 6, 7 days a week. You don't need to, be up at 4 o'clock in the morning and rolling hard all day. So I deal with it as well. Uh, as I've gone through my journey, I've realized that I come from a working background. So I'm a worker, right? I'm a guy that likes to be more on the blue collar side of things and get after it. But as you develop your business entity or entities, you realize that mentality will also kill you. It'll be an advantage in the beginning, but if you don't know how to stop it and delegate and organize and systematize, you will constantly do too much, and you will constantly be fatigued, and you will constantly be complaining of either overwhelm or ineffectiveness, lack of productivity, you name it. So I have to be aware of my own negative tendencies. And to my right, I say going too fast and doing too much. Those are my two great threats.
And that's what we were saying a little bit right before we started recording, is that, like, yeah, everybody's got a ton on their plate, right? Like, how do you manage that? How do you manage your time? That's one thing I think about a lot. It's like I've I have a million interests and I'm doing a million things, but how do I stay on track and like prioritize the things that are important to me, like family and friends, which sometimes slip. I've heard
Yeah.
before that, like, there's seasons of different things, but I don't know what you think about that. Like,
Yeah,
just
there's
managing.
seasons, but if the season of eating poorly, not working out, and treating your body like shit goes on for too long, you may not have another season. So it's like, yeah, that's a great word of advice to somebody that has an infinite timetable. Look, yeah, you could spend the next 10 years crushing yourself, putting yourself into a potential medical condition, eating like crap, staying out late, drinking, doing the whole thing. But look, you built a great book of business. There's guys that do that. I mean, I've met some old Wall Street guys. These guys are 50 years old, some of them, and they look like hell. Some of them 60 years old, they look like they're half dead because they went so hard for a period of time. I'm thinking of this one guy, his name was Roger, and I had a couple gyms in Westchester County in New York, and this guy came in, and he was literally like 55 years old and retired. I can almost guarantee you today that he's dead. He just went so hard as a floor trader, and he did it for 10, literally, like, I think he said 10 to 15 years of his life. College, 15 years, retired by like 40. And
Yeah.
had nothing left. Fried himself out. Couldn't continue. So the season thing, I don't quite believe. The only thing I would believe is, look, like, hey, you got a venture you're about to start. You want to open a bagel store. You want to open an online business. You want to do something like that. Your first 6 to 12 months are going to require more of your time. They're going to require more of your personal energy before you can start turning things over 100%, 80%, 75% to a team. But if this goes on for an extended period of time, it's a death trap because you may not be able to get out. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I have a lot going on. I have I
Yeah. How do
coach.
you do it yourself? Yeah. You got
Yeah,
so many
yeah.
things.
It's tough, man. I coach. We have a farm, right? We have a direct to consumer meat business. We ship meat all over the country, and I got trucks going out and doing all that. We got animals we got to manage. Uh, it's the one thing I realize is, like, you're only as good as your team, and we've heard that a couple times in our lives. But you got to have good people that want it. They want the ball. You don't want people you have to overmanage. You don't want people that can't think. You don't want overthinkers. You want people that can help your entity go. So I try to in my mind say, okay, where are we going? That's like one of my top questions. Where are we going? Where are we going? And are we going side to side? Are we going forward and a little bit back? Or are we on a course that will move us forward? Are we on a course that'll move us forward? Like, let's use a podcast for an example. Just hypothetically speaking. If you love the podcast and that's your thing, and you use it for, maybe some people use a podcast for recreation, and that's a way for them to decompress and relax, and they enjoy it. It's a joy project. Well, the expectation from that should not be for you to turn it into like a multi-million-dollar entity. It should be to just, this is a joy project. I do it because I love it. It helps me relax. Now, if you're looking at it from the other end, saying, look, I want to use my podcast as a sales engine. I want to attract people. I want to, right, whatever. That's a different plan. That's a different track in the mind. So there's different ways in which we would operate. Same podcast, but we would operate around those things differently. If we're using it to generate clients, we do it one way. If we're doing it for a little bit of relief and fun and engagement and just we do that differently. So everything you do, you got to realize, like, where am I going with this?
You're speaking me right to me, man, with that one, because that's what I think about. I'm like, yeah, I enjoy doing this, and then there's days where I'm like, man, why don't I think about turning it into something more? Like some of the people I'm talking to, like working with athletes, and they're have a recruiting company or something like that, but I don't have a perfect vision around that. That's what I kind of
Yeah,
struggle with, and I'm like, do I need one? I don't know, but just like, yeah, it's fun, but I'm like,
yeah,
I think I could be doing something more with it. So
well, yeah.
I
And
I
can
don't
you
know.
compete? Do you want to compete at the higher levels of podcasting? Right? It's a different. These are different mentalities. You know, we've gotten in trouble in our country today. I believe because we look at it like every minute of our time has to be used functionally. Where, hey, what's wrong with a guy that just wants to turn the mic on and chat with interesting people and share the message? Like, what's wrong with that? Well, you know, he doesn't have sponsors, and you know, he's not getting the likes and the numbers that he would want for. Like, if you're just doing something because you really love to do it, and it's therapeutic, it's recreational, it's got these secondary benefits, that's a great thing. That's like somebody that loves woodworking, and they after work they go in the shop and they make stuff. There's nothing wrong with that today. Not everything has to be monetized, and I'm a capitalist at the highest level, um,
Hmm.
but not everything has to be monetized. You can do things for just love doing it. I just love doing it. I just love doing it.
It's good. It's a good perspective, and I appreciate it. So,
Yeah, yeah.
all right,
That's
man. Listen, I want to ask you one more thing. I was just wondering about because I think in this, so Habits of a Champion, Joe Girardi wrote the, what was it, the foreword to it? Is
yeah,
that right? So, and I was telling you, I'm outside of Philly. I'm a Phillies fan, and for whatever reason, it didn't work with Girardi, and now you've got Topper, who you were also in the clubhouse with,
yeah.
I believe. What are you what are your thoughts on that? I don't know. I mean, Joe is obviously a really strong personality, and then
Well,
Thompson almost seemed, yeah,
I
you,
worked with Joe when he was a player, and I worked with Joe when he was our manager, and I worked with Joe when he was our bench coach. So, I worked with Joe as player, coach, manager, and I've had my times of banging heads with Joe. But like I said before, right, we don't always have to agree, but we can be friendly and we can be close and such. So, I mean, we would bang heads and then go work out together. Joe is a Joe believes what Joe believes. It's like how we started this chat today, right? He's convicted in what he believes. And if you go against what he believes, you've gone against what he believes. And you know, he can be a little more confrontational in that way because he believes in what he believes, right? He's willing to fight for that. That's not a bad thing either. Where Rob Thompson is very similar to Joe. Like Topper would get to the ballpark at like 4 a.m. in spring training, and I mean he's as type A as they come. Hair, he's showered and ready to go, full uni by 6 a.m. So he's wired tight too. He has a different level of relatability to players, right? Joe will say, "Hey, Joe, doing and out." Where Toms will come by and say, "Hey, what do you got, Joe? What are you thinking?" Two different, totally different approaches. I mean, it's night and day. That's why they worked well together as manager and bench coach. You know, and then you know, Tom says Kevin Long, our hitting coach, who was our hitting coach, you know, as
mhm.
well. He's traveled with him quite a bit, and Kevin's got a great ability to relate to players as well. So when you take the two of those guys, it's a very high emotional quotient between the two of them. And today's player, today's worker, they need that. It's different than back in the day where it's like, yeah, Joe, you don't have the chops. Well, get out of here. Today's different. It's different. It's not as, it's a little more You got to have a little more compassion for people. You have to have a little bit more connectivity, So
Yeah, that probably different from the days when maybe Jeter and some of those other dudes you worked with throughout. Well, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe to an
it
extent.
was tough,
Yeah,
man. I mean, like it
yeah,
was players of yesterday were they were tougher. They came from a different style. The styles of management were a little bit harder back in the day. Like get it done or get out. Like it can still be that today, and it is still that. Truthfully, if you don't perform, you're gone. But you have to do it in a different way. Think about players, people, like guys don't want somebody on their throat all day long, like all over their ass. They don't want that as much today.
mm,
They want someone that says, "Hey, Joe, listen, you're doing a great job." And you walk away and you're like, "I'm doing a great job." Makes me feel good. It reminds me, I told the story yesterday to a guy I work with in private equity about Mariano Rivera in 1996. He struggled, believe it or not, he actually had some struggling that went on in that year, and the Yanks won the World Series. But it was his first full season as a Yankee. And Joe Torre came up to him after one of his bouts that he struggled with and said, Mo, listen, I just want to tell you this. You're not getting sent back down. You're not getting sent to the minors. You will be on this team at the end of the season. And from that point on, that conversation on, everything changed. And he was able to really embrace his role, embrace himself, and just go at it. And his whole career exploded after that. So it's different times.
freed him up, man. Gave him the ability to go out there and be who he was. Yeah, I love that story. By the way, I'll let you run here too, but I love that story in the book where you said you asked him, like, how'd you do it, man? Like, you're on
Yeah,
the mound in
yeah.
front of 40,000 people,
Yep.
right?
Slow it
He's
down,
like, we
quiet down.
decide, we make situations big. That's something I have to keep in mind personally, So
Yep.
it's good
We
lesson.
we we all do because as you walk people through their own mindset, everyone's afraid of just a couple things. They're afraid of looking bad, they're afraid of going broke, and they're afraid of dying. Three things. That's it. Actually the fourth one is rejection, right? So looking bad is kind of like rejection, but they don't want to look bad, right? They don't want to go broke. They don't want to die, and they don't want to be rejected. Those four things own people. You know what? I think those are worth writing down because it's what owns us. You know,
Yeah.
let's put that there because it's powerful stuff. If you think about that every one of those things can own us. Looking bad, rejection, dying, and going broke. Once you come to terms with all those things, you'll be like, wow, how many of my actions are aligned with not going broke? Well, I don't take a risk. I won't buy that house that I really want. And I know that I can stretch for because, well, I don't want to look bad and I don't want to go broke. Right? It just feels, I don't want to go for that promotion. I don't want to go apply for that job. I don't want to, whatever. I don't want to do that speech because I don't want to look bad. I don't want to get rejected by the audience, right? What if my message sucks? Um, so those four things are like, whoa, I could
Yeah,
write a
man.
book called The Four Things.
Yeah. The four things. That's it. Looking bad, rejection. Those are two things, man,
Yeah.
that are on the top of my mind a lot of times, like
Well, let me coach
subconsciously.
you right through that, right?
Yeah, would love
Nobody,
to.
nobody cares. You think most people care? Like the things that you're worried about, nobody cares about. Like most people are so caught up in themselves that we're worried about what people how they perceive us or what they think about. They're not thinking about it. Like they,
Yeah.
people like us, right? Today, we're gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna go send a couple emails. I'm gonna go do a thing, and later I'll be like, "Ah, it was a good talk with Joe." That's it. Now, I'm not looking for, hey, oh my God, you see that little hair out of place there? Oh my gosh, I should have shaved before. Right, all that kind of stuff. That's like our own game that we just crush ourselves with. But nobody really cares. Everybody's running to the next thing. I mean, it's just nobody really cares. Like Diddy was hot for a couple days last week. Now nobody cares, right?
It's
Everybody's
true.
on to Vance and that other guy, and next thing you know, that's old news. And then it's playoff baseball, and then that's old news. And next thing you know, you're at the Super Bowl and talking about the halftime show, and then nobody even remembers right now who did the halftime show this past year. No, nobody really cares. Nobody cares.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's just a reminder, I guess, for yourself to do what you actually want to do,
Do
right?
what you want to do. You get one spin, you get one life. Why give other people that much control, input, impact on your life? Imagine like you could just do what you feel like is best for you without worrying what anyone else thinks. It's pretty powerful stuff.
Pretty powerful and pretty good place to leave off right there. So,
Yeah, I like it.
Coach, thanks, man. This is great. Yeah, I first heard you on Luke Melm's podcast like
Okay.
years ago because
Okay.
I was in a spot where I'm like, yeah, I don't know, like baseball and business that just resonated with me, and I heard your story and
Yeah.
full circle. So
No, I appreciate you having me.
appreciate your time. Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes, maybe where to find people. Maybe they can, if they need any meat or anything like that, go
Yeah.
Freedom Farm, or maybe maybe I'll just give you the opportunity to share that real quick if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, we ship meat all over the country. It's fun from our farm in upstate New York. We are freedomfarms.com. And then my website is just danacavalea.com. And that's where I do my coaching, my blog, and all that kind of stuff. I do the podcast actually a little bit less than I want to these days
Yeah.
because I just didn't I'm doing other things. That was a
Well,
fun project.
yeah, yeah. It's fun right now for me, man. But I know it's the on other things. So cool.
All right,
All
Joe.
right, all right,
Beautiful.
Coach. Yes, sir.